The Cherniavsky trio were a fascinating trio of three brothers originally from the Ukraine. They consisted of Michel Cherniavsky on cello, Leo Cherniavsky on violin, and Jan Cherniavsky on piano. They were the sons of Jewish musician, scholar and conductor Abraham Cherniavsky from Ukraine. Some say he was a klezmer player. Leo Cherniavsky, the violinist, was born in 1890 and died in 1974. Jan Cherniavsky, the pianist, was born in 1892 and died in 1989. And Michel Cherniavsky, the cellist, was born in 1893 and died in 1982. Here's a description of a performance they gave in Wellington, New Zealand in the early 20th century. A spotlight shines on three slender, dark-haired youths as they walk onto a stage, take up their instruments and begin to play. Leo, the eldest, on violin, Jan on piano, and Michel, the youngest, half hidden behind his cello. The audience is enthralled. Nothing like this has been seen in Wellington before. Such young musicians, such mellow passion. They are the Cherniavsky trio, and they will tour New Zealand again and again over the years to come. This trio of brothers were part of a family of 9 musically gifted children, 5 brothers and 4 sisters. Jan and Leo were born in Odessa, while Michel was born in Uman. Leo, Jan and Michel were the middle 3 of the 9 children. Born to a poor Jewish family in the Ukraine, but musically a rich family. The Cherniavsky trio was founded in 1901 in Uman in the Ukraine. Their father, Abraham, taught all the children to play and founded a children's orchestra. Abraham's wife, Rachel, or Rosa, was a magaziner from Berdichev. Abraham was probably a klezmer musician. But family life meant constantly moving to various towns in search of work. They toured all over the world, at first as musical child prodigies. Due to the anti-Semitic restrictions that existed in the Russian Empire at the time, Father Avram Cherniavsky decided with his sons Leo, Jan and Michel and the family to leave Russia for Western Europe in 1904. And so they moved to Vienna in 1904 to study music and gain the support of influential people there. The Bettelheim family of Vienna quickly embraced the Cherniavsky trio and promoted them in Vienna's music circles. The Bettelheims used their connections in England to facilitate the trio's move to London in 1906, launching their international career. Indeed, moving to London marked a turning point in their lives. They began to enjoy international success throughout the world. As a violin, piano and cello ensemble between 1904 through to the mid-30s, so around a period of 30 years. At times things were tough. They had little money for food. Michel would later recall that their mother, a wonderful cook who kept us all in good health, would on her way home on the underground count the number of grapes on a bunch so that they were distributed fairly. They toured in Western Europe from 1904, went to South Africa in 1908 and 1909, India, Australia and New Zealand in 1914, and made their New York debut in 1960. They were naturalised in Canada on May 1st, 1922. The family moved in musical circles, and in 1908, Leo, Jan and Michel went on their first long tour to South Africa and Australia. Critics, though worried about the strains of touring on such young performers, praised them highly. As the boys grew up, they acquired a long-time promoter, Howard Eddy, and Leo discovered a talent for managing tour details. Youthful energy buoyed them through constant travelling and performing, and unexpected events such as Leo's violin coming apart in Kuala Lumpur's intense humidity and Michel's cello being dropped and smashed on a railway platform. It was insured and replaced. After its final farewell concert in Salt Lake City in 1934, after some 30 years, the trio disbanded. In 1958, it embarked on another comeback tour, a planned one-off tour of South Africa, but the trio was unable at that time to repeat its earlier successes. Could not build on its previous fame. and then after separating as a trio they appeared individually as musicians. During their time in New Zealand in 1914 they teamed up with exotic dancer Maud Allen whilst on tour to acclaim. She was a dancer who interpreted ancient Greek and Egyptian art, specialising in the biblical dance of Salome. And there are rumours that she could have been linked to Leo Cherniavsky. While staying in Suva, Fiji during yet another tour, Michel, when he was 22, and Mary Rogers, aged 20, daughter of B.T. Rogers, a Canadian sugar refinery baron, fell in love at first sight. But World War I, the brothers' Canadian tour, and opposition from Mary's family would delay their eventual marriage for several years. In the end, Michel and this rich heiress married in Vancouver. Michel's son Felix, who lived until 2016, would later write books about the trio and Maud Allen. Maud Allen, the dancer herself, died in 1956. In 1917, the brothers again came to New Zealand for a gruelling but successful tour of 33 cities and towns between April and June, from Peroa to Invercargill, using whatever transport was available, city, town or hamlet. As long as there was a paying audience, they told the newspapers, they would play. Back in Vancouver in April 1918, Mary Rogers' father died suddenly. During this time of the Spanish influenza epidemic, Mary was volunteering in a children's ward of a hospital, but the trio played on in Egypt, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Philippines, the United States. When Mary and Michel were married, the trio's gift to her was a grand piano. During their honeymoon at the Lake Louise resort in Canada, they met the leader of the hotel orchestra, a man named Arthur Fiedler. He would later become famous as conductor of the Boston Pops Orchestra. In 1979, on his parents' diamond wedding anniversary, Felix recounts that Mary would remark to her husband Michel, "Do you remember as we walked out of the church after their wedding, people were saying it wouldn't last?" In 1921 and 1928, the brothers got together for two last tours of New Zealand. Again, they were treated rapturously. They were now all married. Jan the pianist had wed Mary's sister Elspeth. So two brothers had married two sisters and settled in Vancouver. There he became a soloist with the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, which had essentially been founded by his mother-in-law, Mary Isabella Rogers, widow of the sugar baron. A little more about Elspeth Rogers Cherniavsky. Elspeth Rogers was born in Vancouver in 1900 and grew up in her family's mansion, Gabriola House, which still stands on Davy Street. She attended Crofton House School, volunteered with Alexandra Orphanage, and in her leisure time rode her horse in Stanley Park. Her father was the prominent Vancouver industrialist B.T. Rogers. He founded BC Sugar Refining Co Limited, now known as Rogers Sugar, in 1890. The BC Sugar factory remains a Vancouver landmark. Its origins and history linked the completion of the cross-continental Canadian Pacific Railway and the expansion of industry in Vancouver. Elspeth's mother, Mary Isabella Rogers, was born into the Angus family of Victoria. She became a leading patron of music in Vancouver in the first half of the 20th century and is credited as the de facto founder of the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra. Elspeth was connected to Jewish social circles in Vienna through her husband Jan Cherniavsky, whom she wed on June 1st, 1922 at St Paul's Anglican Church on Jervis Street in the high society event of the season. Throughout his life, Jan Cherniavsky returned to Vienna frequently. Remember, they had moved there in 1904 when they were young, and that's where they first gained fame, and maintained his boyhood friendship with the Bettelheim family, particularly with Karl Bettelheim, who was closest in age to Jan. After Jan married Elspeth, he immediately took her to Vienna to meet Karl and Karl's wife Gabby. During the 20s and 30s, Jan and Elspeth lived alternately in Vancouver, London and Vienna, as dictated by the international performance schedule of the Cherniavsky Trio. So they rented a flat in Vienna and lived there for a time with their children. With the connections in the music world that Jan had, Elspeth amassed a large circle of Jewish friends in Vienna, including composers, performers, sugar refinery magnates, timber products manufacturers, academics, art collectors, lawyers, doctors and engineers. The couple were back in England in the spring of 1938 when Nazi Germany annexed Austria. Disturbing news reports of mob violence and persecution compelled the Cherniavskys to travel to Vienna to check on the well-being of their many Jewish friends there, particularly Karl Bettelheim. In May 1938, after the Anschluss, Elspeth and Jan Cherniavsky arrived in Vienna by car. There are letters that survive from her from this period, and in one of them she describes how Hitler's photograph was everywhere and how swastikas were covering everything, and Streicher's paper Der Stürmer was on sale at every corner. Anti-Jewish laws rendered Austrian Jews stateless, subjecting them to random arrest and dehumanizing attacks, and denying them protection of the police and the rule of law. An alarming number of ordinary Austrian citizens turned against the Jews, and thus an atmosphere of terror was created, in which the Austrian Jews, as observed by Elspeth, felt absolutely trapped and hunted. Upon reaching Vienna, the Cherniavskys went immediately to Karl Bettelheim's flat. Karl could no longer practice law, his car was confiscated and his assets registered with the Nazi authorities in anticipation of expropriation. Even though he had lived his entire life in Vienna and fought for Austria-Hungary in the First World War, he lived in constant fear of being visited by the SS. He was desperate to get himself and his teenage daughter out of the German Reich. Elspeth Cherniavsky described it as like seeing people drowning slowly. One of their friends, Rosa Lemberger, was imprisoned for 3 weeks with 4 other women in a one-roomed cell and was allowed out only when she signed a paper saying she would give all her money and properties to the Nazis. Another of their friend, Dr. Patzau, had been rounded up and ended up in a concentration camp, perhaps Dachau or somewhere. This was a time when it was dangerous for Jews to go out in public and equally dangerous to meet in homes. So the Cherniavskys met their friends in back rooms, behind locked doors, using whispers, away from windows when they might be seen or overheard. Jan and Elspeth were determined to use their Canadian citizenship and international connections to help their Viennese friends caught in the Nazi regime. At the British consulate in Vienna, they saw about 100 people waiting to get permits to go to England. Their meeting with a CPR agent regarding immigration prospects in Canada was unsuccessful. Obtaining official permission to leave was difficult, and a illicit flight was risky. Even after the July 1938 Evian conference, the Western democracies were turning their backs on the Jews of Europe and refusing them safe passage. The Nazi paper Völkischer Beobachter, reporting on the outcome of the Evian conference, smugly proclaimed on July 15, 1938, "Germany has offered the world its Jews, no one wants them." Despite the obstacles, the Cherniavskys were able to help Karl and his daughter Trauti reach safety in England in 1938. Trauti secured a permit to study and work as a children's nurse in Northamptonshire, while Karl lived in London. Eventually they emigrated to the United States in 1940. The Cherniavskys assisted other Bettelheim family members in building new lives and businesses in Vancouver. So really, Elspeth should go down as one of the righteous among the nations, being a non-Jewish herself, although her husband was Jewish. Perhaps she is classed as such. Whilst many of their younger Viennese friends, mentioned in Elspeth's letters that have survived, made it out of Europe before the start of the war, tragically, most of their older friends could not or would not leave Vienna and perished. Karl's brother, retired Judge Hofrat Ernst Bettelheim, and his wife Ellie were deported to the Theresienstadt ghetto in 1942, where they perished within a year. Following the Aryanization of the Struckosh sugar refining factory and seizure of his property, Georg Struckosh committed suicide in Vienna just weeks after Elspeth and Jan left the city. The remaining family fled to Switzerland and eventually immigrated to the United States. Elspeth's refusal to simply stand by and watch history unfold distinguishes her from other non-Jewish North Americans who witnessed the atrocities in Vienna in 1938 and did nothing. This is drawn from an article by Lisa Kircher, who worked with the Vancouver Holocaust Education Center for 2 decades, and was originally published in spring 2022. Jan founded the Cherniavsky Junior Club for the Performing Arts, which still enables children to attend orchestral concerts at discount prices. Leo, the violinist, settled in Cape Town and married twice, first to Gertrude Ewing and later to Australian Bea Nicholas. Michelle and Mary made France their home. By 1934, the Cherniavsky trio had become only a memory, but a brilliant one.